Record.
Now we're recording. All right. Amanda, where does it go?
Tell me how to mute it.
Top left of your screen, you should have two buttons. I have 4, you have 2.
You can also just click on your picture.
Yeah. If you click on the top, you lose all sound, usually.
Gotcha.
That's cool too, thank you. All right, let's go to the next slide. Google Hangout. Go ahead.
Did you want our student number in the subject line
No,
on the site?
no, thank you. Thanks, Stephen, but no.
Okay.
So Google Hangout looks like old news, and not May. I did transition to Canvas, also known as Big Blue Button. And this next thing is a moot point too. It was news last night. It's not today. All right, so let me restate this major assignment because I'm liking it more the more I think about it, as a means of you really getting a comprehensive view about the different functions in a school district and how those functions operate to solve problems. So again, I'm asking you, requiring you to create a management plan for your administrative team. And who's your administrative team? Well, it's made up of those job descriptions and those people, those fake people, hypothetical people that are attached to those job descriptions. So that's why even if you haven't been able to find job descriptions, Amy, in your own district, go find some job descriptions someplace on the internet. Because as you develop this assignment, you're going to want to refer to those functions that are described in the job description to be able to assemble your management plan. All right, Amy, did you catch that? Very good, thank you. So I'm going to work in the next 4 days to develop a rubric and guidelines for the management plan. And we'll get back to that later on in this lesson. I'll be more specific about that, all right? All right, let's go to the organizational charts, because this turned out, from my estimation, to be, well, certainly a lot of our work is dry, can't help that. But I found it very interesting what we were able to get out of the organizational charts. And what I'd like to do is try another function. I want to share a screen because I set aside the charts that I want to look at. And I think, so let's see. First of all, we got to share screen. Oh, this is kind of a, all right, before I do this, I found working with Jim that if I share screen and then stop, I have to keep installing this little app. So I'm going to try to stay screen share for as long as I can so I don't have to keep doing that, all right? So I have to start. That'll download the file I need. There it is. Can't be open now. I got to go over to, see, this is why I say to my preferences and let it look at this. What was that? Security. Hang on. Oh, that's wrong. All right, preferences. Darn it all. Come on, please, don't give me a problem now. It's worked out really easy.
Classic.
The security preferences allow installation. So it's in my security preferences. Oh, in my system preferences, I think it is. Okay. There it is, open anyways. Open, okay. Can you see my screen now? Hang on.
I just see the district organizational chart.
Hang on, how about now?
Not yet.
Not yet. How about now?
It sounds like, can you hear me now?
Can you see the Lockport School District organization chart?
No.
Damn.
Innocent people continue to die. And I could just point out as a footnote that it was a year ago after the meeting when
We're gonna go through that again.
met with President Obama and never mentioned that within 2 days, 48 hours, they were going to, for the first time, become engaged militarily in Syria. Just want to give you some insight into Neyman Mohaddin sitting down with the Turkish President Erdogan yesterday in New York, and this is what Mr. Erdogan had to say about the ceasefire.
Ceasefire that was signed or agreed to in the last 2 weeks.
Anyway,
In Syria dead.
open JavaScript. You want to run this application?
War baby, that's what Turkey's calling it.
Run
Well, look, obviously, and you're
sharing desktop. You are now sharing your desktop. Okay.
Oh, there it is.
All right. Is
Yeah.
it small?
Small.
It's small.
Clearly, especially in light of the attack on
That's no good.
convoy and then the strikes on Aleppo.
Maybe.
And when we were starting the meeting inside the International Syria Support.
Can you expand it on the?
This is not
Yeah, you cannot maximize this window.
Okay.
Hang on. Probably the way I'm laying this out. Let's try the webcam meeting. No.
Yeah, if you change your screen to webcam meeting, that is bigger.
Well, I just did, but it doesn't look any bigger to me.
For us it is though. We change it to that, you leave it at what you want.
So if I change to webcam meeting,
Or if we change it to webcam meeting, our display is large. And
all
we
right, try
can
that.
display actual size.
Look at the bottom right of your screen. You've got a drop-down menu where you can change your layout. Right as Amanda's saying, go to webcam meeting.
Yeah.
We obviously support that here at the State Department because, as Pete Williams was saying earlier, we have different.
And then if you maximize what you want us to see, it's big.
So I maximize. Oh yeah, I want to maximize that. How about? No, that doesn't help.
If you want to maximize like the Lockport document,
We just don't obviously agree that this is the way forward. Clearly,
it should fill our screen.
There it is.
And then maximize that, the green button. If you can make it touch the green button in the corner of that document.
John Kirby, thank you very much. Busy time for you. Thanks for taking time for us.
How about that?
Yep.
That's good.
And coming up, prep school.
Organization.
I can't see any of you. So if you can't see this, say something. All right, so I'm presuming you can all see this, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
All right, that's good. Now, this was sent to me by Amanda. Thank you. And there's something very peculiar about this one, Amanda.
Really?
And Yeah, and rather than me explain it, let me see if anyone can pick up on it.
I find that it's interesting that there's auditors and attorneys in there.
Yeah.
The fact that the auditors and attorneys are on there is not what's extraordinary about this.
Interesting.
And look at the clerk and the treasurer as well. Those four positions, treasurer, clerk, actually it's the district treasurer, the district clerk, the board attorney, and the internal auditors, those positions are all above the superintendent. Not, I shouldn't say above, but they do not report to the superintendent.
Right. So I'm looking at my school district's organizational chart, and the district clerk and the treasurer are equal to the Board of Ed.
Well, this is Lockport. Whose is this?
I'm not sure whose that is, but I was comparing that one to what you just said about the treasurer. District
All right,
clerk.
now, just a protocol. If you're going to speak, say your name.
Okay,
Because
Christine.
Hey, Christine. So, repeat that, please, Christine.
So I'm looking at the Lockport City School one, and I also have the one from my district sitting right here. And the treasurer and district clerk in the Cleve Hill district are equal to the Board of Ed. So, but in the Lockport one, they're falling almost below the superintendent.
Exactly. Now, I hope I don't. I'm going to minimize this. I can't. Yes, I can. Let's set this one aside. I want you to see what this is supposed to look like. I think the Syracuse one is a good one. Yes. Take a look at Syracuse, provided to me by whom? Which one of you gave me Syracuse?
It's me, Alyssa.
Thank you, Alyssa. Let me stick with you, Alyssa. What do you notice about Syracuse that's different than what we notice about Lockport?
Well, one, ours is it seems a lot more complicated. We've got a lot more.
Hang on, Alyssa. Stay with what we were talking about. I'm talking
sorry?
about the district. Don't go off on a tangent with me. Stay here. I'm talking about the positions we were referring to when we looked at the Lockport chart. District clerk, internal auditor.
They're off the Board of Education, not under the superintendent.
Exactly. However, I see this is partially right. All right. That's a partially correct one. There's a better one in here.
Cooperstown one's good, huh?
David, I didn't set it aside, David. Let me try. Oh, this one. Yeah, this is a good one to make the point. You see my cursor?
Yes.
Here you've got the treasurer, the claims auditor, internal claims auditor, the district clerk, the district's attorney, and the employee relations attorney, all reporting to the Board of Education. This is how it's supposed to be by law. It's meant to not concentrate too much authority in that of the superintendent, in the office of the superintendent, and have these four positions report directly to the board. It's a checks and balance. No doubt about that. It's a checks and balance system.
Can you share those with us or no?
Yeah, I don't see there's any reason why I could not. Let me make a note of that.
Because I know our Lockport is working on theirs, because we've moved some leadership positions around, so that would be helpful.
All right. Now, let me tell you this. Many districts, in fact, the majority get this wrong.
with this, using his own
Surprisingly, this is good. I can still see you all. Okay, I'm happy with this. I just have to minimize my screen. I'm going to send you the good ones, okay? Yeah, these many times the districts don't even include them. And you know, I said last night, from a personnel perspective, if you had one of these 4 positions and you were in the district, how would you feel? First of all, your position, as important as it is, and these are very important positions, was ignored entirely. Second of all, what would the public think if it's looking at this chart? And as in the case of Lockport, unfortunately, Amanda, finding these positions reported to superintendent, when in fact that's not the case. This is lesson number 1 about why organizational charts are important, because they graphically depict who reports to who. And let me tell you something right now, by the way. Just before class started, I finished another video. I had the rare opportunity to interview Carl Christoph. Does anyone know who Carl Christoph is? Amanda, you do? Sure, special ed, right? Carl Christoph is a premier school law attorney in Western New York. At times has served as on retainer for the Buffalo Board of Education, has put out fires in countless districts in Western New York, and he's known across the Eastern Seaboard as one of the best in his field. Carl consented to an interview, which I'm going to share with you tomorrow, and it's going to be your assignment for next week. There's 30 minutes of Carl talking about the relationship between a board and a superintendent. And here's my point. I asked Carl specifically to mention what we're talking about now, how these 4 positions report only to the Board of Education. It's true, however, that in reality, and 90% of the time, these individuals are working in concert and under the direction of the superintendent, and in particular under the direction of the business manager. But the treasurer in particular knows that if he or she feels something wrong is going on in the district, he does not have to go to the superintendent or the business manager, directly to the board. Same with the internal claims auditor. Internal claims auditor, there's two, that's a generic term. The internal claims auditor is typically someone on staff that you pay a stipend to review all of your claims for payment. So it's another internal control and checks and balance to make sure that someone's not ripping off the district. But then you also have your internal auditors, which are independent third-party auditing firm who audits the district. And then, frankly, there's also your external auditors, which is another auditing firm that audits the district. All of these auditors report to the board, not the superintendent. All right? So that's the first lesson we got out of these organizational charts. I hope I can still share a screen. You saw how relatively, well, this is Lockport. Now, Lockport, 4,200 students, right, Amanda? Well, that's the case, about 4,200. And, you know, relatively flat. Here are the important positions, if you will: central office, assistant superintendent for personnel, assistant superintendent for learning and assessment, assistant superintendent for finance and management services. And after that, you've got director positions, which a lot of districts have, including the principals. So districts this size, as I said, are relatively flat. To make the case about how districts are organized differently depending upon their structure and their legal status, let's take a look at Buffalo City Schools to really make the point. All right, we don't see the line authority here necessarily, but we can assume how it works. This is the central office team. Whereas in Amanda's district, Lockport, there were 3 positions. Here there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Let me quickly Well, before I do that, what I want to do here is you see the Board of Education and you see Dr. Kreiner Cash. We notice here too, the auditors are left out, so is the attorney, so is the district treasurer. But I don't know if the city schools have district treasurers, but they do have clerks, all right? I'm sorry, here's general counsel right here. Now it's Edward Betts. But can anyone tell me what they notice that's missing at this very top level above the Board of Education? I'm going to show you New York City schools, and it's become really apparent what's missing. There's two things that are different from City of Buffalo and New York City. What do you notice right up at the top?
That one's really obvious.
Oh, yeah, there's two things. One, the mayor is included, isn't he? And number two, there's no superintendent in the city of New York. There's a chancellor. But what I wanted to draw your attention to was the fact that the mayor is here as a member as an officer, if you will, running the school districts. And again, well, here's the reason why that is. When you talk about the Big Five, and in the next class, we're going to talk to you about school districts' legal designation and how that matters. Because in the case of the Big Five, Buffalo being one of those, the mayor is actually in charge of the school district. And the major, obviously, I don't know exactly how the terms go, but the powers of the Board of Education are subservient to those of the mayor. And there's also a very important way that city schools like Buffalo and New York City are funded, the local share. Does anyone know where the local share of funding comes from? Let me ask you this question. Is there a vote on budgets in the Big Five? David, did the Big Five vote?
I have no idea. I know we do.
And where are you?
Cooperstown?
Exactly,
Small.
because I think you're a centralized school district. Cooperstown CSD,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Very good. Lockport CSD. Buffalo, New York City, Yonkers, what are the other three? Is Rochester and Syracuse maybe? But those Big Five are organized differently. And their local share of operating funds comes from the legislature. They're treated just like social service department, the police department, fire department, etc. So there's no vote. That's why back in the does anyone remember Jimmy Griffin? You're all too young. What Jimmy Griffin, the mayor of Buffalo, used to do was whenever the state education department would increase the state share of funding for public ed in Buffalo, he would reduce the Buffalo share by that amount. So that's one of the reasons under Mayor Griffin, you're always in the hole. When he gives you more money, the city takes it away. It's a game. But that's really important, and I wanted you to see that in the organizational chart as well, because that matters who reports to who.
All right, I'm back and I'm working.
Who are you?
I just messaged you saying that the charger on my computer all of a sudden wasn't working, so I had to switch back to the other computer.
Is that our faceless Megan?
No, Christine.
Christine. Oh, very
I
good.
got
And you got
put
some
it off for like 5 minutes, and this one has better lighting, so we're good.
well, all right, good.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. We're glad to have you back. Now, let's do something else here. Let's look at what not to do with an organizational chart. Amy from the other class sent us this one. How do you like that one?
Oh, wow.
Does that make sense?
I like that it's color-coded, but other than that, I'm having a hard time.
Hard time
No.
reading.
It's pretty, but that's about it. It really, someone tried to be creative. One might say too creative. And I don't think it really illustrates the way it should I mean, the lines matter. The lines aren't just drawn in there for the hell of it. They're drawn in there to show the communication, the line of communication and authority, vertically and horizontally. And let's go back to this nice one from this one here. And then I'm going to show you something really very odd we found out last night. Here we can really see very easily who reports to who. Take here's the principals. In this particular case, the principals, because of the size of this district, all right, they need to go through the assistant superintendent for curriculum. I'm sorry, we've got the principal line here, pardon me, going directly to the superintendent, and that's good. They don't have to go through anyone, but they're also responsible to this assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction, and they're also responsible to this assistant superintendent for personnel and administration. What do the dotted lines mean? These are meant to signify close cooperation. Now, that's a good one. I like that one. Let's take a look at one, though, that we looked at last night and really we found out, told a story. And I'm going to try to get, you know what I'm going to do? Amy, I'm going to pick on you this time. And then, Stephen, I'm going to pick on you too, all right? And see, and then Alyssa as well. I'm going to see if I can get what I can get out of the three of you, all right? And Michael, you should be able to see this right off the bat. Michael, weren't you a principal before?
Yes. Yes, I
All
was.
right. Don't give this away, Michael, but look at this and later on tell me what you think you see. This is a little district called Harpersville. That's a little hard to see. I'm going to have to blow it up quite big. The way I got it was not really that good. A little bit more. Can you see it now?
Yes.
All right. I want you to look at these positions under the suit. I want you to look right here. And Amy, I'm going to give you the first crack at this.
Okay.
What do you notice, Amy, especially given the way these lines are drawn?
The director of guidance is above all of the, like the assistant principal, the principals, the directors.
No, well, first of all, Amy, where they are situated on the horizontal doesn't really signify anything. The fact that they're slightly higher, if that's what you're referring to, doesn't mean anything.
So that line above them doesn't necessarily mean that those positions are below the director of guidance.
There's no one underneath the director of guidance in this.
I'm looking at the line that's connecting it to the treasurer. That's all.
Right here, director of guidance. No, I want you to look right here. Look at the principal, assistant principal, and professional instructional staff. What do you notice?
They all report to the principal.
Is that really the case? Hang on, Amy. Let me go to Stephen. Stephen, is that really the case?
It appears as though the assistant principal.
You're breaking up, Steve. Try again. No good, Stephen. Stephen, you're breaking up. Let me go to Alyssa. Alyssa, what do you see? I don't hear you at all, Alyssa.
It looks like they're all reporting directly to the superintendent. The principals, the director of guidance, the director of special programs, and the treasurer.
Yeah, you got that part right. I'm going to go to our principal. Michael, what do you see that looks odd here? Right here.
Say again?
Mommy. I'm fine.
Michael, what's that telling you?
I can't see. I know. I don't know where you put it.
Well, I mean, it is a small, obviously it's a small rural district.
Yeah.
There is no,
What does this line tell you, Michael? Yeah.
Does it tell you?
There's no one for the. I mean, there's no. As far as this hierarchy goes, there's just typically there's someone who is a conduit to the superintendent. I mean, it's not portrayed here.
No, you're missing it. What do you see here? Anyone? Chime in. What do you see here? Does this line tell you right here?
Do the assistant principals report to the superintendent as well?
Yeah. Who's that? Who's talking?
It's Alyssa.
Yeah, Alyssa, look at this. Good call. This one little line here gives this assistant principal the option to go right to the superintendent with going and bypass the principal. Good. What do you see here? The instructional staff. Who are they reporting to in this district?
The assistant principal.
The assistant principal, the principal, and the superintendent.
No,
No.
they go to the
The
assistant
professionals.
principal and then the
The
superintendent.
No. The professional staff report to the assistant principal. That's it. Now, I don't know who's doing all the banging around over there, but please correct it. Now, back to what's going on here. There's two conclusions one can draw. One is that this is really sloppy, right? Or this is done intentionally. And guess what? The person who sent this to me after I posited these two possibilities, confidentially speaking, I'm not going to tell you who, well, you see the district. I'm going to take you into our confidence. She admitted that this was done on purpose by the superintendent to bypass the principal.
So did they, this is Christine.
Christine, we can see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you. So try it again, Christine. Unmute your mic, Christine.
Oh, how's
Try it again.
that?
We got
Okay.
you.
Just a quick clarifying question. When you said that they tried to surpass the principal in this, do they have someone that oversees the organizational chart and like can make it legalized so there's not like the tricks of the trade, like how you just mentioned, how they're trying to bypass the principal?
Christine, thank you for that question because that's the third kind of major lesson of this exercise. Some of your organizational charts are embedded in policy. Some of them are not. There are choices to be made as to whether you do or do not embed your organizational charts and your job descriptions in policy. Now, if you choose to embed them in policy, only a Board of Education can create an approved policy, all right? And typically, it can take anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months to get that done. Because boards have policies on how to change policies. In Gowanda, where we met every 2 weeks, you had your first reading, you had your second reading, and then you had your third meeting where you actually approved it. So it took 6 weeks to approve even an editorial change in a policy. I'm going to get to the nub of your question, Christine, because it's still a good one. On the other hand, if you meet once a month and you have the same first reading, second reading, third reading, look at how long that could take. It could take 3 months. But the good thing is that you've got the board's imprimatur. Those of you who are Catholic school kids will know what that means. The imprimatur on your policy. On the other hand, you don't have to go through policy. It could be just an administrative function. And yes, Christine, I know that there are superintendents out there who are writing roughshod on things like this and just slapping it together how they see fit. And sometimes in a fit of pique, they might do that just to screw somebody, like might have happened here. I don't know. All right? But a good superintendent is going to work with his or her administrative team and make sure that they understand what this all means, and also work with the Board of Education so the board concurs. Because as we just found out by looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly, it really matters. Your organizational chart tells people who they have to go through to get things done. And if you want to have a well-functioning, well-oiled school district where your chain of command is clear and your lines of authority are understood and easy to communicate, you'll have one like that district Saskatchewan, I think it was. That's a good one. On the other hand, if you want to create, well, it looked like they tried to solve a problem in Harpersville. Well, Michael, imagine you're the principal. Mike, unmute. Michael,
Yes,
if you're
sir.
the principal and your superintendent did that to you, what would be going through your mind?
If what?
If your assistant principal didn't have to go through you to reach the superintendent.
Well, I think in every organization it'd be a mess. I mean, we'd just be all over the place, and you just feel disrespected. You'd feel disconnected. You'd feel like we're not. I mean, you know, the biggest thing for me was just that my whole entire organization is like a family. You come to me, and then if the problem is larger than me, obviously, then that's where it goes naturally. But if everything superseded me right from the get-go, I'd feel like there's no hierarchy, that I'm just meaningless. I'm just another spoke in the wheel.
But isn't it also, you're exactly right, Michael, but to make sure people don't misunderstand, but isn't it also true in a district like you're in, a district like I was in, assistant principals have an open door to go into the superintendent's office, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
So don't think of it as being so rigid that someone can't get in to see the superintendent. But when things get a little tough, when things get a little tense, you have to rely upon clear lines of communication and authority to make sure that people aren't doing ends around. Imagine if everybody could just go to the Board of Education. Why don't we just let everybody go to the board?
Well, I mean, but even like what you had just pointed out with those lines, like what I said, and you said I missed it, but I said there was no buffer. There was no assistant superintendent. Like I said, it was a small city school, so obviously there's not a lot of upper management. But clearly, just because I've never even looked at my own organizational chart, I got to be honest with you. I mean, I know what the chain of command is, but when I was an assistant principal, regardless of the chain of command, I went and spoke to the principal. If I had something to say to the superintendent, I mean, that was normally done during a cabinet meeting or during a committee. I never just went to the superintendent. But even as I look at you display it now, I see what you mean by that line that's coming up there. But still, the chain of command, regardless of this silly little chart that somebody made, is still going to, I mean, I wouldn't think that in probably maybe 1% of situations, it'd be nice to actually talk to these people, how many times they just went to the superintendent when there was a problem. I doubt it was that type of flow in reality.
Well, from the effort provided to us by the scenario provided to us by the teacher who works there, it was not 1 out of 10 times. This was done on purpose. And the other big thing, let's not lose sight of this. Did you notice who the instructional personnel reported to? Let's look at it again just to make sure we're making this point. I'm beating a dead horse here, but look at this. There's no, hang on. Hello. Yeah, but I've got class. Who's this, Terrence? That's okay, Terrence. How about calling me tomorrow? That's okay, buddy. Don't worry. Call me tomorrow. Say about 10 o'clock. Or whenever you can. Whenever you can. Okay. He's a good guy, that Terrence. Okay. So, I mean, we can conclude. Here's another point. Even though with this class, I'm not spending a lot of time talking about doing environmental scans like I am with 649, this is why we look at things like organizational charts. This is why we look at job descriptions. This is why we check minutes and agendas, read policies and procedures, do an environmental scan of a district that we're applied to or are now employed by, because there are crumbs to follow. Who was the fairy tale with the crumbs to follow to get back home? Hansel and Gretel, right? Hansel and Gretel left the crumbs so that they could get back home from the witch's house. Well, this is what's going on here. You can follow the crumbs and you can find out about a district. And we found out that Harpersville is dysfunctional just by looking at one piece of paper. And the individual admitted that there were problems there. Maybe dysfunctional is too strong a word, but nevertheless, things are not happy in Harpersville right now. That's why you do a scan. That's why we do this exercise. I've got 8:32. We're getting close to a close. Let me see. Anna, Harpersville. Oh, let's look at one more. Let's look at BOCES, because BOCES is an entirely different animal. For those who may not know, and most of you do, but BOCES stands for Board of Cooperative Educational Services. And I think there's 27 of them across the state, divided up into regions. In Western New York, you've got the Joint Management Team, Allegheny, Cattaraugus, BOCES, Erie 2 BOCES, Erie 1, and Orleans, Niagara. Clark Godshaw is the district superintendent of that BOCES. He happens to be an employee of the state education. You can see that on this chart. All right. He's also an employee of the Orleans BOCES Board of Education. He's paid from both these sources. And this source gets its money from the component school districts. I don't know, maybe he's got 12 component school districts. Lockport, you're in this BOCES, aren't you, Amanda?
Yes.
And BOCES provides services to smaller school districts. They're not allowed to provide services to city school districts. But if you don't know BOCES, this is just organized just a little bit differently.
Is Erie 1 not in that? So Erie 1's separate from this one?
Yes, Amanda. Is that Amanda?
Yeah.
Yeah, Erie 1 would be one of the separate BOCES.
Okay.
All right, across the state.
So Erie 1, Erie 2, and Niagara. So Niagara Orleans is part of New York State BOCES, and then the Erie 1 and Erie 2 are separate.
Where's the map?
Yeah, they're completely different, and they can't share. They don't share services. They don't cross lines.
Here we go.
We are allowed to use services from Erie 1 though in Lockport.
Let me explain that. That's called. Can you see the map?
Yep.
So here we are. Here is Erie 2. Let's get that red again. That's Erie 2, Cattaraugus. Here's Erie 1. And it's not by county notice. They stretch over counties. Here's Niagara Orleans. And here's the rest of them across the state. All right? Now, what I heard you say was that, I said that BOCES provides services to its component school districts. And that's true. Now, where's my hang on? Now, the bulk of services that you in Lockport would purchase, Amanda, would be from Orleans, Niagara. However, there's another layer on top. Well, let me hang on to that. Amanda might, however, need to provide, she's in special ed. Amanda might need to provide a special placement for Johnny Jones, who has a particular disability. She doesn't offer it in her district. She knows that Erie 1 offers it. The child lives on the border and can get bused into Erie 1 and take advantage of that service. That's called a cross contract. You might also find that there's maybe a labor relations service or here's a service that's cross-contracted amongst the JMT, scheduling of athletic events. All right, that's a cross-contract across the number of BOCES. Now making it even. Go ahead, Amanda.
Professional development sometimes is, along with things like IEP Direct or Frontline Direct now, in services like that.
Yes, exactly. Now, let me give you another layer of organization here that has to do with cross-contracting. We all need these days technology services, right? Let's see if I can get a map of this. Maybe images. Let's see. This might be it. No. All right, so let me just explain. Amanda, you'll remember this maybe from 599. So we all need testing services these days, right? Scanning tests, scoring tests, producing labels for tests, uploading the test data to Albany. This is all done in the regional information centers. There are, I think, maybe 11 of those across the state. They're housed in BOCES, but they're not BOCES. So in Western New York, there's the Western New York Regional Information Center, the RIC, housed in Erie 1 BOCES Mecca, and those of us in that RIC region purchase that service through Erie 1 BOCES and pay Erie 1 BOCES for that RIC service. It's complicated, but it's a cross contract. So again, this is what your future work may be all about, dealing with all this minutiae associated with physician, but I feel obligated to follow these strands and strings, or breadcrumbs, if you will, when the topics come up. All right? So let's get off that and close up. All right, let me stop my screen share. That's pretty good. I like that. Did y'all like that screen share? That work for you?
Yeah.
All right, good. Let's go back to this. What did we like? The presentation meeting? Yeah, look at that. Smarter than your average bear. So we're not going to do that tonight, but I believe that we're going to have the same interesting conversations when we start looking at the job descriptions next week and how they differ from one district to another. Or, as I found out last night, there's one BOCES that admitted that they don't like to have things on paper. And so when a young student went to ask for job descriptions from that BOCES, she couldn't get them because they don't believe in putting things on paper. I don't know what to think about that, but that's another sign to me. If I'm scanning that district and I hear that, the red lights go off. Back to the point. So we're going to compare and contrast job descriptions that you sent me. Just the superintendents and the business managers, there's way too much to do with the other positions, but you still need to get those because they're going to be your central office management team that you're going to work together with to create your management plan for school consolidation. We are going to discuss types of school districts, the legal designation of school districts, the common centralized union-free city, central high school, BOCES, and also special act schools. All right, because that's a new class, an entirely different class as well. I finished tonight, like I said, the video about superintendent and board relations that Carl kindly did for me. That's your assignment for next week. It's 30 minutes between today and next week. You're going to have to view it. I'll be talking about it during class, all right? So be sure that you're ready.
And you're gonna give us the link to the video, or is it?
Yes, Amanda, I'll send you the link tomorrow morning, okay? One of my better pieces of work, Amanda, if I must say, but only because Carl is just so good at what he does. And then let me talk now about the major assignment format. What I'm going to do is develop a problem statement, and it's going to look something like this. It's going to be the scenario. You're the superintendent of a 3,500 pupil district. You've got one high school, one middle school, and 3 elementary schools. You find that in the attendance zones feeding one of these schools, you've got low attendance. In fact, the district is losing enrollment quite dramatically. In this one building, you've got one section of each grade level. And even those sections are 13 or 14 kids in a section. Your roofs are leaking. Your HVAC needs work. It would take a big capital improvement project to fix it. Your state aid ratio is only about 65%. In other words, the local share is going to be very big if you do a capital project. The board has said to you, we want you to explore and research consolidating our district and closing a school. So your job is going to be to develop a management plan, a game plan, if you will, for you to follow and your internal central office team, your special ed director, your food service, transportation, business manager, personnel manager. I think those are the ones I mentioned. But go back to the last week's class, make sure you got them all. That's why you need those job descriptions, Amy, and others who haven't got them together, because you're going to need to know what those functions are. All right, you need it. And I'm also going to, in the management plan, develop a rubric so that you know what to include. And lastly, not the next class, but probably the class after it, I'm going to have you spend some time together brainstorming the types of things one needs to pay attention to when thinking about consolidating a school. And I also think I'm going to call up my friend Jim Perspajniak, who closed some schools in Lakeshore, and have Jim join us during a Canvas session to tell you what it's really like in the field to have to do this, all right? So what do you need to do for the next class? Watch the video and be prepared to talk to me about the JDs, okay? And I think following that class, I will have time then, following this class, time to start setting out these scenarios, these rubrics, these assignments, and get things dumped in Canvas so you can have a better frame of reference about how this course is going to develop, all right? Let's see what happens if you all unmute. We get a lot of feedback. Let's see what happens. All of you unmute, please. And I'm going to wish you all a good night. I'm not getting much feedback. That's good.
Right. Good night.
Have a good weekend. I'll see you all next week.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
It's actually opening a lot of opportunities that the educators don't have in our middle schools currently. Clubs.
Charles, got a question for you.
Yeah.
With that Harpersville chart, do you think they created that just for the principal and will move back to original one, or will they just keep that as a bypass?
Here would be my guess. Now, she didn't give us all the details. What she said is that the superintendent purposefully created a chain of authority where the assistant principal could bypass the superintendent and the instructional staff as well. Now, David, if I put a few more pieces together, I would think a superintendent would only do that, number one, if the principal was nearing retirement and they were just hanging on for a couple more years here, at which time they would do what you just mentioned, hire a new principal and reassert a proper chain of command.
Okay. Yeah, but I've seen it in our school, but we had a principal leave this past year, and it seemed like, you know, each year they loaded him up with more and more and more duties to really push the person out. And eventually it was just enough where, you know, he broke him and he picked up and left.
But let's explore that a little bit more, because here's the flip side of that same coin, Steve or David. So what they did here was they literally in Harpersville removed duties from this person, right?
Yeah.
So one could argue that's making his job easier. He's just going to hang around longer. So this is a very. Go ahead.
I said one would think that when you look at it, you know, they're like pushing him into a closet door and say you stay there and be quiet, rather than listen to his input.
So those of us who've been superintendents have oftentimes been faced with this dilemma. Do I give them more to force them out, or are they such a bad, do they mess things up so bad that I take things away? Or should I take things away and then just sitting there reading the Wall Street Journal all day long?
Yes.
That's true. So it's a tough question, and you may be faced with it someday. You've got leadership potential, I think, and as you develop through principal and possibly even superintendent ranks, you'll find yourself in that position. Absolutely, no doubt about it.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Thanks for sticking around with me longer. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Okay. Good night. You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You are currently the only person in this conference.